This conference will now be recorded.
Is it audible? Can anyone respond? Okay, right. So yesterday we started with what function imports, and we have seen one example on that. So let us see another example on function import. Right. So when do we go for function import? If you want to perform any actions which cannot be implemented using normal CRUD operations, then we'll go for creating what function imports. And function import will be associated with what input and what output parameters. So what is my requirement is we have a function model. So let me go to SC37 bappy underscore flight underscore yeah get list. Okay, so we have a function module bappy underscore flight underscore get list. What is the signature of this function models here? It takes what these optional parameters like airline, departure city, destination, all those things, and returns the flight detail. So when I execute this, it is returning me some 356 entries. Understood? So all the input parameters are optional here. So this function model is returning me the list of what flight details, list of flight details. So what I'll do now is okay. Yeah. So my requirement is I want to create a functionality using the Odata service to return the flight details based on the given airline. Based on the given airline. So see the change that I'll do here. Just observe this. So I'll go to Gateway Builder, Gateway Service Builder SCGW. So let me create a project here. Just I created this one. Okay, done. So let me create quickly another project. Let me give the project name as something Z615 project 8. Okay. So function import to return what flight details. Done. I'll save it in the local object. So this is my project. Okay. So initially what we will do, we have to create the entity now. So far we have seen what we have seen two ways of creating the entity. Like we are creating the entity manually, and then we have seen how to create the entity importing from a data dictionary structure. Okay, so we can create the entity manually. I can right click, I can say create, or what we have done in another case, we right clicked on the data model and we said import what DDIC structure. So now what I'll do is I'll right click on the I'll right click on the data model. I'll say import what is this RFC slash BOR interface. Okay, so we have a function model, BAPI function model, which is nothing but an RFC. Na? So what I'll do is, understood. So I'm trying to create the entity importing from a RFC, importing from the RFC interface. So I'll right click on the data model. Okay, I'll right click on the data model. I'll say import what RFC slash BOR interface. Done. It is asking the entity type name. You can give any name. Let me give it as something flights. Okay, so what is the type here? Yeah, and the function model is available locally only. Na? So here I'll choose local radio button. If the function model is available in another SAP server, we need to create the RFC destination. The basis consultant will create the RFC destination SM59, and we have to choose the remote and you have to provide the RFC destination. But in this case, our function mode is available in the same server. So I'll choose what local. What is the entity type name I give? Flights. Then I'll set type. Here I'll choose the type as what? Remote function call. I'll choose remote function call and provide the function model name. What is the function model name I told? BAPI underscore flight underscore get list. So what I'm trying to do here, I'm trying to create the entity by importing from a RFC interface, by importing from a function model. So I gave it as BAPI underscore flight underscore get list. Say next. Yeah. This function model contains what? Some input parameter, import parameters, export parameters, tables, all those things. Okay. So I need to select the required field. So let me select. One second, please. Hmm. Good. So we have many parameters here. What I'll do is from this internal table, changing here, list of what flights. If I expand this flight underscore list, yeah, it contains different parameters. I'll select what? Airline ID. Okay, I'm selecting the field airline ID. I'll select airline. I'll select some connect ID. Then let me select what flight date. Okay, flight date. So what I'm doing here, from one of the changing parameter, I selected some four fields. I'll say what? Next. Done. So the four fields are what? Added here. Okay. So what I'll do, as usual, I'll make this first field as what? Key field. What is the field? Airline ID. Airline ID. I'm taking it as what? Key field. Done. And I'll say finish. Done. So what happened here? Entity type is imported successfully. So what I did, I created the entity importing from a RFC interface. So this is the entity name and it has got some properties. Airline ID, airline connect ID, flight date, all those things. So if you go to properties, there the properties are added and I can see the data types are automatically picked here. EDM.string, EDM.string, EDM.date type. Done. Okay, so I'm getting some warnings here. I can just ignore it. So it is saying that valid type mapping not precise but best possible. It may not give the exact the same because the data types in this function model and here it is what slightly different. If you go to this function model, BAPI underscore flight underscore get list, if you see this parameter flight list, where is it? Flight list. If I double click on this, I selected the flight date now. What is the data type here? DATS. DATS, that is date. Okay, here it is showing that compatible data type as what date time. So no problem. Okay, so it is automatically picking that. So let it be a date time. Done. So let me generate the runtime artifacts. Yeah. So runtime objects are what generated. Right, so I repeat this quickly. Earlier we have seen creating the entity manually or creating the entity from what? DDIC structure. Now what I did, I created the entity by importing from what? A function model, from a RFC function model. So I right clicked on the data model, I said import RFC interface. Okay, here I have chosen the type as what? Remote function call and I provided that particular function model BAPI underscore flight underscore get list. When I say next, it has shown now some parameters. We have selected some four parameters, and those four parameters are added as what? entity properties. They are the properties I selected. Airline ID, airline connect ID, and what? Flight date. So my requirement is what now? Based on the airline. Based on the airline, I want to get the flight details. Okay, based on the airline, I want to get the flight details. What is the key property here? Airline ID. But I want to pass airline as what? Input. So what I'll do here? I'll right click on the data model. I'm trying to create what? A function import. So already we know this. Right click on the data model. Create what? Function import. Done. I'll provide the function import name. So you can give any meaningful name. I'll give it as what? Flights by airline. Flights by airline. Understood? This is the name of the function import. Flights by airline. Continue. Done. Okay. So function import was created successfully, and this function import should have some return parameters now. So here you can see this is my function import name. Here you have to specify the output parameters, nothing but return parameters. So here return type kind is no return, but I want to return what? Flight details. So I'll choose a return type kind as what? Entity type. Then again what? Return type, nothing but your entity. When you browse this, yeah, it is showing me the entity. What is the entity here? Flights. Then return cardinality. Okay, so each airline might contain what? N number of flight details. So I'll choose the return cardinality as what? 0 to N. Okay, 0 to N. And return entity set. Return entity set is what? Your entity set. What is this? Flight set. Done. Not working. Let me browse this. Flight set done. Okay. And then what? Yeah, HTTP method. I have to read the data now, so I'll choose what? Get. If I want to insert, I have to choose post. That I'll discuss another example. So I'll choose what? Get only. Action for entity. Nothing but your entity name. Browse this. Yeah, what is this? Flights. That's all. So I gave the output parameters. Done. Then I have to give the input parameter now. So how do you give the input parameter? Somewhere here under your function import, we have function import parameters. So double click on this. Here I need to append. What is the name you want to give for the input parameter? You can give any name. Let me give it as what? Airline. Airline is obviously what? String type. So I'll choose what? EDM dot what? String. So this is the signature of my function import. It is having one import parameter airline of type string, and it is having some return parameters. It is going to return how many records? It might return multiple records. What is the HTTP method you have to choose here? Get. And then we need to implement the logic for this now. Where do we implement? Already we know. Under runtime artifacts in the data provider extension class, navigate to data provider extension class. In the data provider extension class, we need to redefine which method? Execute underscore action, because execute underscore action is a method which gets executed whenever we make a call to any function input. So as part of this class, let me search for execute underscore action. Yeah, execute underscore action is a method. I need to redefine this particular method. What is the description? Executes a function input. So I'll put the cursor here. Also what? Redefine the method. Done. So you need to write the logic. You need to write the logic to get the flight details and return it. Okay. So what is the signature of my function input? It is having one input parameter. Now what is the parameter name? Airline. Airline. Okay, and if you see the signature of this method, what is the parameter which will carry that input parameter? Let's say we have seen that. What is that? IT underscore parameter. So this is the internal table which will carry your input parameters. So first what I have to do here, first step is read the input parameter. In this case, what is the input parameter? Airline. Airline is the input parameter. Done. Let me declare the work area based on that. So also data ls underscore what parameter like line of what is that parameter it underscore parameter. Right. So I declared a work area. Let me read the internal table. Read table of it underscore parameter into what is the work area ls underscore what parameter read table it underscore parameter into ls underscore parameter with the key name equal to what is the name of the input parameter airline with key name equal to airline and just to improve the performance I'm saying what transporting value anyhow this internal table contains only two fields name and what value so I'm transporting what value done if size of ours is equal to 0 if the input parameter is successfully read what I have to do based on that airline which we are passing we have to get what flight details get the flight details okay we have to get the flight details huh? Right so what is the function model I need to call bappy underscore flight underscore what get list what is the signature of this it takes what airline id as what input yeah it takes what airline id as input all are optional parameters only so I'll pass only one parameter it is expecting what a work area field so I need to prepare this done to copy this yeah here also data lv underscore airline id type so and so then I'll say lv underscore airline id equal to where is the input parameter ls underscore parameter hyphen what value ls underscore parameter hyphen value lv underscore airline id equal to ls underscore parameter hyphen value done then what does it do this function module will return an internal table which contains what flight detail so what is that it is under table section yeah it is of type what bappy sfldat list of flights so let me declare this I'm interested all are again optional I'm interested to receive only what the flight details so that's why I'm referring to this particular parameter data I'll say lt underscore flights lt underscore flights type table of what so and so then I may need to loop it so ls underscore flights type what so and so I declared all the necessary parameters now call the function module so I'll go to pattern bappy underscore flight underscore what get list bappy underscore flight underscore get list here you have to pass what airline there are four optional parameters I'll pass the airline id lv underscore airline id done remove this tables yeah in this I'm interested to receive what flight details now so I'll just take this flight details done flight list is equal to what is the internal declare lt underscore what flights lt underscore flights so I'm receiving this particular internal table lt underscore flights 1 second please yeah so I'm receiving that particular internal table now what you have to do hmm, okay so I need to return this data and can I return this as it is if you see this lt underscore flights it is of type table of what bappy sfldat so if you see this structure if I double click on this it contains what fields 14 fields it contains what 14 fields it contains airline id it contains airline name it contains flight connection number flight like this it contains some 14 fields it contains some 14 fields so I cannot return this as it is why if you see the signature of this function import Let me go back. If you see the signature of this function import, yeah. What is the return type here? Entity type. It is referring to our entity type. Our entity contains how many fields? Only what? 4 fields. What are they? Airline ID, airline name, flight connection number, and flight rate. Only 4 fields. So I cannot return that internal table as it is because that is having what? 14 fields. Okay, so I need to map it to my what? Return type. So what I will do for that is let me go back to that method execute underscore action. Yeah, so I cannot return this internal table as it is. So what I have to do, I need to map it to a return type. So what you have to do is if lt underscore flights, sorry, if lt underscore flights is not initial, if it is not initial, what you have to do, map the flight details to return type. So I'll declare it. So what is the return type here? It is referring to our entity internal table. Now. 0 to n I give. 0 to n means nothing but what? Internal table. So yesterday we have seen, or before that also we have seen, as part of model provider class, what will be available? Model provider class contains declarations related to your entity. So based on your entity, there will be some declarations with a types declaration, one work area and one internal table. So if you go back to my model provider class, again let me save it and go back to my model provider class. Yeah, this is my model provider class. Yeah, in this model provider class, okay, so in the types declaration you can see we have what? TS underscore flights and TT underscore flights. TT underscore flights is basically internal table. So if you click on this, yeah, TT underscore flights is what? Type standard table of what? Type standard table of TS underscore flights, which has got how many fields? 4 fields, referring to our entity properties. So I need to refer to this internal table. What is my model provider class? This is my model provider class. I need to refer to that particular types internal table. So let me go back. Yeah, here I have to say data, let me get as something GT underscore flights type. So it implies what is the internal table you have seen? TT underscore what? Flights. TT underscore flights. I require a work area also. Let me declare GS underscore flights like line of GT underscore flights. Done. So I declare internal table and what? Work area. Now let us loop it. What is the where is the flight details are available inside what? LT underscore flights. Also loop at LT underscore flights into what is the work area I declared here? LS underscore flights into LS underscore flights. LS underscore flights. Done. End loop. So here I need to map. Let's clear GS underscore flights. Also GS underscore flights hyphen. It is referring to your entity. Na? What are the fields in your entity? Airline ID, airline connect ID and flight date. Okay. Airline ID, airline connect ID and not flight date. Done. So JS underscore flights hyphen airline ID equal to what is that? LS underscore flights hyphen Here the field names are slightly different. What is this? Airline ID only. Okay, airline ID, airline, connect ID, and flight date. Okay, done. Same names are there. So since there are same names, I can use move corresponding also. Okay, or else since the names are also same, I can use move corresponding also. Otherwise, you assign it manually. GS underscore flights hyphen what airline equal to what is that? LS underscore flights hyphen airline. Then GS underscore flights hyphen connect ID is equal to LS underscore flights hyphen what connect ID. Then GS underscore flights hyphen what flight date equal to what ls underscore flights hyphen flight date. So I can assign it manually like this. Okay, I can assign it manually like this, or I'll use what move corresponding. Move what corresponding. What is that? ls underscore flights to what gs underscore what flights. Understood. So when I can use this move corresponding when the field names in the target and source are what same. So I'm using what move corresponding. Move corresponding ls underscore flights to gs underscore flights. Done. And then also what append. What is that? gs underscore flights to what is the internal table? gt underscore flights. I'm appending it to that one. Done. This is over. Then what you have to do? Already yesterday we have seen from the function input you have to return the data now. So how do you return? Yesterday we have the last two classes we have seen one method copy underscore data underscore ref. So what is the next step here? The final step is what? Associate the flights data to the return entity type. So what is that method I need to call? Copy underscore data underscore to underscore ref. So in the same data product extension class, we have seen one method copy underscore data underscore copy underscore data underscore to underscore what ref. So this is the method I need to call copy underscore data underscore to underscore ref get reference of data. So if you see the parameters of this, it contains two mandatory parameters. Is underscore data is importing type any and cr underscore data is changing type ref to data. Is underscore data and cr underscore data no? Done. So let me go back to that method. Yeah. Here what I have to do? What is the method I have to call? One method can call the other method of the class. Copy underscore data underscore ref. Import becomes what exporting. What is the parameter? Is underscore data. So what is the data you want to return? The internal table. What is that? GT underscore what? Flights. Then we have another parameter what? Changing. Changing. What is the parameter name? CR underscore data. It is a reference to data. Na? CR underscore data is what type? Type ref to data. So in this method only, we have one parameter here what? ER underscore data, which is also of same type, not type ref to data. So just pass that particular parameter, ER underscore data. ER underscore data. That's all. End if. Should I use any other end if statement is over? Yeah, here also if size of was equal to 0. Okay, here also have to use one more and if save it, check for the syntax error, activate this. Done. So I'll put the breakpoint here. Done. Go back. Right. So let me regenerate the runtime artifacts. Okay, they are generated. Since this is the first time, I need to register it. Yeah, it's registered. Then let me right click on this, say maintain. Right, so launch that gateway client tool. So what is the first thing you have to do when you have the URL? First get the metadata about the service. So in the metadata, you'll get the information related to your function import. So if you see here, yeah, this is your entity. What is the key property here? Airline ID. Done. So scroll down. So CS. What is this? Function import name is what? Flights by airline. What is the input parameter here? Airline is of type what? String. Mode is what? Input parameter. Done. Okay, and what is the output parameter where I can get it? So here you can see HTTP method is get, and here you can see somewhere you'll have that information here. Return type equal to what? Collection. Return type equal to collection. It is referring to what? Our entity set. Collection. What is your entity here? Flights. Done. Okay, so this is the output parameter and this is the input parameter. What is the function import name? Flights by airline. And what is the input parameter name? Airline. Okay, done. So what I'll do is let us call that particular function input. So before that, let me check what are the available airline IDs. So when I execute this function model, how many entries are there? 356 entries, sir. Okay, done. What are the airline IDs here? LH is there, AA is there, LHA is there, AZ is there. Okay, done. So we have many what airline IDs. So what I'll do here, how do you call the function import? Just after your service name, you have to give slash. What is that function import name? Flights by what? Airline. So flights by airline. Acha, this is my function import name, and this function import is having an import parameter. Na? I'll not pass that import parameter. I'll just give this function import name. I'm not passing an import parameter. Let me check what happens when I execute this. But what the error I got? Invalid function import parameter. So what are the parameter we specify? That is mandatory always. So I'll say, how do you pass airline equal to airline equal to? I'll say something AZ. Airline equal to what? AZ. Okay. So when I execute, it is going to that method. It's going to that method implementation. This is the input parameter you are passing. What is that? Name of the parameter is airline, and what is the value of that? AZ itself. Done. I am reading that if size of r is equal to 0. I am preparing that input parameter. Done. It is prepared. Now we are trying to call the what function model, which will return the flight details based on the given airline. So when I say F6, how many I got? 52 entries I got. So if you see this internal table, yeah, related to AZ, we are having how many entries? 52 entries. But I'm not interested in all these 14 fields. No? We are having what? 14 fields. I want only in my entity, we are having only what? 4 fields. That's the reason I'm just writing this logic to loop your internal table and map it to what? Return type. Okay, so once it is done, I'll put the breakpoint here. Okay, so what is this GT underscore flights is as of now what 0. So this loop will be executed for how many times? 52 and 52 times. So I'll say fit. Yeah, I got 52 entries in my final. internal tool which has got only 4 fields: airline ID, airline, connect ID, and what? Flight date. Done. How to return the data to the response? You have to call the method what? Copy underscore data underscore to underscore what? Ref. So when I say fit, yeah, I got the response. I got all the flight details with airline is what? AZ. That's it. Okay, so what we understood from this is yesterday what we did as part of my execute underscore action method. If you open the yesterday's one, so in the yesterday's case, this is the function import. This is a function import we created products by category. Okay, so what is the logic we wrote there? You have to go to that method execute underscore action. Yeah, inside this execute underscore action. So same kind of thing. I'm reading the input value. Yes, I wrote what? Select statement. I wrote the select statement to fetch my required data. To fetch my required data. And at the end here also I used what method? Copy data to ref. Today what is the change I have done? If you go back to the today's runtime artifacts in the data product extension class, if you go to that method execute underscore action, right? So here also same thing. What I did, I have read the data. Now I'll come to that point, Ventesh. Okay, I'll come to that point. So here I'm reading that input value. I'm calling what here? Function model. So what I'm trying to show here is as part of my function import implementation, I can write any logic. I can write the select statement, or I can call a BAPI function model, or I can write any kind of logic. Okay, so logic is not important here. Understood. I can write a manual select statement from one or more tables, or I can call the BAPI function model. But at the end, in both the cases, what you have to do, you have to call which method? Copy data to ref. Copy data to ref. That is one thing. And one more point you have to understand is, if you go back to the yesterday's one, in the yesterday's case, we created the entity manually. I created this entity manually with Omni properties, some 6, 7 properties. Okay, they are the properties I created. What is the key property here? Product ID. Today, what I did, I created the entity. I created the entity by importing from what? By importing from what? RFC interface. So we have seen creating the entity in 3 ways. One is creating the entity manually. Then in the earlier classes, we have seen how to create the entity importing from a DDIC structure. And today we have seen how to create the entity importing from a RFC interface. RFC interface means nothing but what? A BAPI function module. That function module will have what? Some parameters. Depending on the parameters we select, the entity properties will be created. And another point you have to understand is, in the yesterday's case, the key properties were product ID. Okay, and what I did there, I created the function import yesterday, and in that function import, what is the property I'm taking? What is the input parameter in product category? So it is a non-key field here. It is a non-key field. Category is a non-key field. Na? Product ID is a key property. Category is a non-key field. So yesterday I went further. But today what I did is, what are the function import? What is the entity here? This is the entity. And what is the key property here? Airline ID is a key property. Airline ID is a key property. And if you see the function import, in the function import also, what is the input parameter I passed here? What is that? Yeah, what is the input parameter I pass here? Airline ID only. This is not airline. This is airline ID only. Understood? So I can write the same logic directly by implementing what? by implementing what? This particular stub, get entity. So as I told you yesterday, when we have to go for function import is, if you are unable to provide that implementation using the normal stubs, you have to go for function import. But today if you observe, what is the import parameters I took here? Alien ID only na. So I can directly write the similar logic in what? Get entity. Ventesh, is it clear? So the say instead of going for the function import, I can implement the same logic inside get entity only now, because any of the parameter for my function import is what, again what, key property only. So I can directly do it. So what I mean to show here is the developer has to decide when to go for function import and when not to go for function import. Unnecessarily, we should not create the function import. Okay, same logic I can write it in what, this one also. If you have time, 1 second, let me just quickly copy that logic from the function import. Where is that? Yeah, I'll just go to data upload extension class. Let me copy that logic. I need to do some changes. Execute underscore what, action. Okay, I'll just copy the logic. I need to do some changes. Control C. Yeah, I'll go to that stub implementation. Done. So in the data provider extension class, what is the method here? Flight set underscore get entity. Yes. Sorry, I need to redefine that. I need to redefine. I should not double click. I should redefine. I'll put the cursor. I'll click on redefine. Done. I'll copy this logic here. Let me remove this super class implementation. I have to do some changes. I cannot use it as it is. So here I'll say read the input parameter. So here the parameter name is different. What is that here? IT underscore key underscore tab. So I'll say I'll make some changes. ls underscore key underscore tab like line of, what is that? IT underscore key underscore tab. IT underscore key underscore tab. Then read table. What is the parameter? IT underscore key underscore tab. Sorry, IT underscore key underscore tab into ls underscore key underscore tab. Done. With the key name equal to what, airline, transporting what value, size of bar equal to 0, get the flight details, lv underscore id equal to ls underscore key underscore tab hyphen what value. Done. Rest of the part is same. They have to call that function model. Done. Yeah, if lt underscore flights is not the same. Okay, 1 second. uh, Let us do it one by one. Okay, so let us not focus on everything at a time. Right, so here, if it is not initial, I have to map it to which parameter here, er underscore entity na. So here I'll say you will have one issue here, because this is referring to a structure, but here I am getting what, multiple records. That is a problem here. Yeah, so see here, what I am trying to do is I am trying to implement throughout the stub method. So what is the input parameter I'm passing? Airline ID. At that time new I'm reading. This function model, what it will do, based on this airline ID, it will return what? Multiple flight details. It will return. sorry. So based on this airline ID, it will return what? Multiple flight details. So I need to return, but this can carry only what? Single record. This can carry only single record. Am I clear what I'm trying to show here? This can carry only single record, but your requirement is what? Based on that airline ID, you may have what? Multiple flight details. So I cannot write the logic here. Understood? Yes, I can return only one flight details, but I cannot return what? Multiple flight details. So here, if you want me to continue here, I'll say back underscore flight underscore get list done. Here, I'll just remove this. I'll say data what? W underscore entity like line of. Why to do like this? Hmm. Here I'll say here I'll say since I can read only one record, map the flight details to return type. So I'll say read table lt underscore flights into ls underscore flights index 1 index 1. Wanted I'm doing like this. If size of bars is equal to 0, I'll say er underscore entity hyphen or y like this. I can directly use move corresponding ls underscore flights to what? Er underscore what? Entity. Done. This is not required now. Done. Done. And if 1 2, another if statement I have to close. Okay, done. Let me save it. Check the syntax error. Activate this. I'll come back to this. I'll put the breakpoint here also. So my data model is having what? One function import we are having. Understood? We are having the function import and we have implemented that stub method, get entity. Okay, so let me go back, activate this, done. Regenerate the runtime artifacts. Okay, so here first try to understand this. First, what I'll do is I'll try to invoke my function import. What was the function import name? Flights by airline. So flights by what? Airline. And what is the input parameter for that? Airline. So airline equal to what is this? AZ. So when I execute this, is it fine? Flights by airline question mark airline equal to what? AZ. Done. When I execute this, I'll say hello, hello, hello. Okay, done. So if you see the result here, my function import is returning how many records? This is one record. Okay, it is returning me what? Multiple records. I think around 52 entries it is returning for that AZ. Okay, done. This anyhow we know. Now what I'll do? I'll just take my entity set. I'll take the entity set. In my entity set here, in the parentheses, I'll give that the key property value. What is the key property value? AZ. I'm giving what? AZ. So when I execute this, yeah, it is going to that stub method. I'm reading that input parameter, right? I got airline ID. What is this? AZ. Done. Done. I'm reading this. I'm preparing that airline ID. Oh, what happened was SMS is 4. Why? This was not found for the segment what? Flights are. Why like that? Let me execute once again. flight set. Okay, in the parenthesis I'll give this AZ. Okay, done. Let me execute. Resource not found for the segment. Once again, let me maintain it once again. I gave the breakpoint now. Done. Oh, I'm sorry. I copied the logic as it is na, with the key name equal to not airline na, airline ID, right? Airline ID, because here in the entity, what is the key property name? Airline ID. Yeah, airline ID. Done. That's the reason read is failed. Airline ID. Done. So I need to do the necessary changes. Done. I've activated this. Okay, done. Now let me execute this. Okay, I'll choose this entity sets, flight set, and give the key property value. What is this? AZ. So when I'm invoking the function import, based on this AZ, I got some 52 entries. Now when I execute this, okay, it is going to that method. Good. Okay, this is the input parameter I'm reading. What is the input parameter name? Airline ID. Airline ID is what? AZ. Done. I am reading it, so read should be successful. Size of bars is got 0. Done. I am preparing that input parameter. Done. I am calling this function model. Okay. So when I call this function model, LT underscore flights has got how many entries? 52 entries. Okay, it has got some 52 entries. Done, done, done. Yes, I got 52 entries. Fine. Okay, now after this what you are doing, you have to map it to the return type now. So I am reading only one entry. Why? Because this er underscore entity is a work area now. Work area can hold only what? One record. So I am reading that. I am reading it. Done. So if you see this er underscore entity, this has got only what? One entry. So when I execute this and I say fetch, okay, so I got the data, but how many records I got? Only what? One record. So I'm able to implement using stub, but the problem is what? I got only what? One entry. Understood? Even though in function import also I gave the key property, there I am getting what? Multiple records. Here I am not getting what? Multiple records. I am forced to return only what? Single record, because get entity always get entity is responsible for what? Returning only what? Single entry. Okay, so that's the reason I am forced to return only one record. If you want to return multiple records, you have to go for what? Get entity set. But what is the problem with this? I cannot pass a parameter. Na? I can pass select options. I can pass select options. But here I don't want to pass select option. Based on the what is the purpose of that function model? It takes a airline ID as input and returns what? The list of flight details. So that's the reason I went to what? Function import. Am I clear to everyone? Venkatesh, is it clear? In function import also, it's a key property only we are passing, but we are able to return multiple values. Here, key property I am passing, but I am forced to return only single record, because this get entity is always responsible for reading what? Single record. So the developer has to decide. Understood? So first I am trying to implement using stub. I am not getting the complete requirement. Then I went for what? Function import. Is it clear to everyone? Okay. So the question was, Even here also for function import also we are passing a key property. So why we have to go for function import? I can directly implement in this one. Yes, I can implement, but here I am forced to return only what? Single record. But my requirement is what? Based on the alien ID, I may have multiple flight details. So I cannot return that multiple flight details through this step. I can return this through this. But again, for this I cannot pass only what? Single parameter. I have to pass only what? Dollar filter. That is select option. That is the reason, since I am unable to implement that using what? Normal stub operations, I went for what? Function import. Yeah. What is the other question, Ventesh? In function import. Okay, done. Yeah, I cannot do it using function import, Ventesh. Function import is only for reading the data and inserting the data. Reading the data and what? Inserting the data. If you want to do delete operation, we have the dedicated stub method for that, right? So here, when I'm writing this delete, you write the logic to delete what? Here also I can delete multiple records now. For delete also I can return what? Multiple records. Acha, okay. Again here for this delete it accepts only single record now, okay. Because it accepts key property. Based on the key property, you'll have only what? Single record. Yes. Yeah, I'll come to that point tomorrow, Ventesh. Okay, I'll try to delete by using function import, but I'll use the HTTP method as post. But the problem is, as per my knowledge, post method is only for creating. But let us try tomorrow. We'll see can we can we do delete operation also using what? Function import. Okay, so let me discuss it practically. Even I am not sure at this stage, so I cannot comment now. So I'll do it tomorrow. Right? Yeah. Because this delete I can implement, but the problem is this delete also expects what? Key property value. So obviously based on the key property value, you will have only one entry. If you want to delete multiple records, I can do with this also, but I should not go for function mode. Okay, let me discuss it tomorrow only. Okay, I'll discuss it tomorrow. How to delete multiple records using function import. Right. So the summary of today's session is we are able to create the entity by importing from what? RFC interface. And what is the other thing we understood? As part of function import, I can write the select queries manually or I can call any BAPI function model. And if you are able to achieve it using normal stub operations, we have to go for stub only. I'm trying to do that, but the problem here is I'm forced to read only a single record. But my requirement is to return multiple records. That is the reason we went back to what? Function import. Okay, so tomorrow what we'll do is today's class, what we did is we created the function import separately in what? Two different projects. Tomorrow, what I'll do is in a single project, I'll create two function import. One function import is for get reading purpose. Another function import is for what? Creating purpose. Okay, so that part I'll discuss tomorrow. And in the tomorrow session only, I'll try to do delete operation using function import. Let me check it because I have not done it so far. That's why I cannot comment. Let me do it tomorrow directly. Okay. Yeah. Any other doubts in this? Please ask me. So function import is a very small concept. Probably tomorrow I think we can wind up the function import. Once a function import is over, we'll see how to work with multiple entities, how to navigate from one entity to another entity. That is a little lengthy topic. Done. So I'll wind up then. We'll continue tomorrow. I've shared all the material and recordings till yesterday. I'll try to share the today's recording and material also. The end of today. Chalo, so I'll wind up. We'll continue tomorrow.